everybody, and welcome to this edition of Whiskey at Work. I'm Mark with Rob. We're down Kelsey. We don't know what happened to her. Sent out some, I didn't check my emails.
Still don't hear that?
Honestly, after I sent one. So I don't know what her response was.
Well, Kelsey, sorry.
Yeah, and then we just got in here and started filming. I should have checked the emails.
Half a second after you got it, you should have replied.
Well, that's how emails should work. I don't want to wait around. They constantly pop up. You get notifications all the time, right?
Didn't you get a notification on your watch? I mean, Christ, your wife called 3 times while we were getting ready.
I don't have the mail notifications. If I had mail notifications on my watch, burned through my wrist. God, it'd be too many. That's not a great face to make before we get started on this.
Yeah,
Rob.
no. Well, I was liking this earlier, and then I took another sip, and it
hang on,
hit the wrong spot.
Here we go. All right, you ready for this? We're gonna try to sound smart in this episode.
Why start now?
You want to try? Well, and the reason why we want to try to sound smart is because
we're going to solve all American Scotch problems today, right?
Maybe. Who knows? There is something out there. I do hear that banging. I don't know where that's coming from. Seems like upstairs. Something's frozen and broke. We're going to be flooded out here in a second. There is.
If that happens, I quit.
We did. We talked about this particular whiskey a while back. It came from Fargo, which is home to one of our favorite bourbons.
Hence the name.
Yes, Glen Fargo. They actually had to, the Scotch Association, actually, whatever that's called, sued these guys. Said they couldn't use the word Glen because they thought that was too much association with the Glens of Scotch.
I bet that worked out real well for them.
Well, it kind of did and kind of didn't because they chose that Glen means valley. So they chose the name Glen because Fargo sits in
the middle of a big valley.
Well, it is. It's the bed of what used to be a lake from a glacier. So they said that's why this name fits perfectly. So, but
the Appalachians on one side and the Rockies on the other.
I guess Scotland said no. You can't call it Glen unless every time you put a label out, you say Glen Fargo American Malt Whiskey. That's the only way the Scotch people drop the lawsuit with that. So they have to, every time they put out something that say Glen Fargo.
Wouldn't they want
American
that on
Scotch
there anyway?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, if you're going to just brand yourself as Glen Fargo, then 3 other words have to follow it. You're a brand guy, for God's sake. What would you, I mean, that's dumb, isn't it?
Well, I mean, they're branding Glen Fargo as an American malt whiskey, though. Isn't it Artisan Distillers or something up in?
Yes,
Fargo?
Proof Artisan Distillers in Fargo. Yeah. Well, we're getting way off track here with that, though. But anyway, it's
the pounding.
We tried this a while ago, and I don't think we really got into the whole American single malt whiskey. This is a brand new
Apparently, we got
thing.
into it pretty good. It's 2/3 gone.
Well, we've had it for over a year, but this is a brand new category, maybe, for whiskey here in the United States. We were just talking about that earlier, about what it would be comparable to, and I don't know if we came up with an answer, really.
Yeah, we didn't solve the problem for sure, but I'm guessing that's what the American Single Malt Commission is supposed to be doing, right?
Well, let's back up and talk about what malt is, for starters, okay? Malt is, let me pull out my handy-dandy cheat sheet here because I wasn't going to sit around and memorize this whole thing.
Malting is a process, not a thing.
Right.
In order to malt it, you can malt, I think, any grain.
But barley is what we're talking about specifically.
So
right.
they moisten it, let it germinate, and then heat it.
You said moisten.
Who doesn't like moist
That's just
stuff?
funny.
You get it wet, you let it germinate, you dry it and heat it, and that stops the germination process.
And in Scotland and Ireland, for a whiskey to be called about whiskey, it has to be 100% malted barley. Okay.
In order to be called Scotch.
In order to be called a malt whiskey, yes. But here in the United States, it only has to be 51% malt.
And that is the rub right now, right?
Exactly. That's where this American Single Malt Whiskey Commission is coming together to try to say, look, we want to make something in the United States of America that is Scotch in essence. Really? Right? Isn't that kind of what this boils down to?
Oh, absolutely. They're trying to edge their way into a pretty crowded craft whiskey market
from Scotland though and Ireland, not so much here in the United States.
Well,
this isn't a big deal here, right?
Well, right. It's fairly new, but I think what they're trying to do is create that demand because the bourbon market is obviously what is stronger here than as an American whiskey. They're trying to make an Americanized Scotch whiskey.
And I think because of all the craft distillers that popped up in the last 15 to 20 years, I think this is a lot of them. This is what they were shooting for, to not compete with the bourbon and similar whiskeys like that here in the United States, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that you'd want to go in there and completely define what is arguably the biggest market in American whiskey buying, which is bourbon. I mean,
sure.
Why would you shun that entirely? I think what they're trying to do is have different products that fit different clientele.
It's weird when you drink it because you think you're going to get something akin to a bourbon taste, a whiskey taste. And then once you try it, you get
a whiskey taste. It's not a bourbon taste at all.
But but I think your brain goes there because it's an American whiskey, right?
Well, I don't know, maybe your brain. You're the Scotch guy. When I see single malt, no matter whether it says American single malt or
always think Scotch
or the Glenfiddich, it's Scotch because most bourbon isn't barley and it's not malted.
Well, and barley is probably the hardest grain to work with too. It's the most expensive grain, I believe. If you're going to make a malted barley, corn is the cheapest. Corn is everywhere.
Well, that's why they switched it from the Scotch recipe to corn here, because it was prevalent.
Sure. So that's why I think this is gonna end up a big deal if this commission gets all their poop in a group and can nail down exactly what this needs to be. I can tell by your face that this isn't something that's going to be is it because it tastes too much like Scotch for you? Is that why?
I think I mean, I don't mind it. I keep getting this sometime about every other sip. I keep getting this weird reaction on the back of my tongue that is you said chocolate off camera.
Boy, am I getting, and I get even more of it now.
And it's like a bitter dark chocolate.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what's hitting the back of my
baking chocolate.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not.
Well, it's right there though, and it's to me that's unpleasant.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, now keep in mind, we're not drinking the Glenfargo. We're drinking this American Oak Westland.
We could tell them what we're...
This is...
tell them what they won, Bob.
This actually came from Washington State, is where this whiskey is made. And, of course, this one's up in Fargo. Both of them, when I was doing a little research, have won numerous awards. Not at the big spirit competitions, but in some more regional ones. So... This is made with 5 different barleys, too, which I thought was interesting, that they all blend together.
Well, if you remember our conversations with Jeff.
Let's name drop here. That's Jeff Arnett, former master distiller of Jack Daniels.
When he was rolling out, the fire, he talked about bringing in cinnamon from different regions and blending them. When he worked in coffee,
right,
prior to being at Jack Daniels, when they would roast coffee, they would bring in beans from different regions because the blending it added to and enhanced and improved the flavor, as opposed to one coffee bean from one farm in one country.
Yeah, mixing them together till you find something that really hits.
Right. So the fact that they're blending 5 different kinds, styles, whatever farmers use, breeds.
The names.
Codes of barley.
I should have wrote down the names of what they are, but they're 5 specific barleys that they mix together.
I mean, to me that much makes sense.
It's super flavorful though.
It is very flavorful, compared to a lot of scotches that we've had.
Yeah, there's no
well, you can
one.
tell them by the color. I mean,
sure, it's pretty dark and it's You get it all for the front to the back to the swallow. I like a little more of that warmth that certain scotches will give you,
especially on days like today.
I don't quite get that now, but boy, this is like eating for me just a really rich piece of chocolate cake. It has that same kind of feel to it and that same fullness to it when you swallow it a little bit. Whereas the Glenfargo, I think, is made with just one or two barleys. And that tastes more Scotch than this does.
Last time you opened this,
it's been a while. But anyway, yeah, that's the difference. It's not bourbon. It's not whiskey. It's not Scotch. Well, it's whiskey. It's all whiskey. But it's not Scotch or bourbon. It's trying to become its own thing. And this commission that's been put together by the American Single Malt Whiskey Get-Togetherers is trying to nail this down, to make it 100% malted barley, produced only in America, and distilled entirely at one distillery. That's the rules they want put in place to make something like this.
They want it to follow the same rules as Scotch, but what's happening now is that American malted whiskey only is required to be
51%.
51%.
Yep. So that's what it all comes down to. And I hope they succeed. I hope we get as many different American single malt whiskeys as we have Scotch. I think it's the door is open for taking the barleys that we grow around here and turning it into, because they'll be so different across our country. Scotland, tiny place, next to a lot of ocean. Our barley, and yet, more in the middle of the country.
And yet they're 5 regions or 6 or whatever.
Sure.
Whatever rule you would hear to today.
You want to believe that? We could have hundreds here in the United States.
Those are vastly different.
They are, absolutely. So I'm kind of excited for this. I think if you, instead of just jumping right into Scotch, you might want to start with something here, because you get the Scotch traits, but a really unique American take on it. And I'm thoroughly enjoying this Westland.
I had a guy tell me on a Zoom meeting that I needed to try Lafroig. I said, "Oh, he hasn't watched any of these. I don't."
He hasn't watched the episode we did on that one, huh?
He said, "Yeah, this guy was my friend of mine. Always wanted this bottle of Lafroig, but he was too cheap to buy it, so I bought him one. And now every time I go over there, he pawns his shit off on us."
Tell him we have like 2 sips left of one here that he can definitely have. Whoever wants it.
Oh, I don't think he liked it either.
Anyway, check these out. I don't think they're available in any of the stores here around Rapid City, but if you're in North Dakota, you'll be able to find the Glenfargo, I think, at almost any liquor store. And if you have an engineer that has family in Washington, you can get some of this. So I don't know. I like it. I think I'm a fan, and I think I might try to grab another bottle of this someday. So, yeah,
I want to like it. I like the Glenfargo better. It doesn't have that bitter aftertaste.
No kidding. That's what I guess I like about it. So we'll agree to disagree on this one, Rob.
You like Lagavulin too, so
I sure do.
You cannot.
No, I don't. Not really. I kind of lied about that. Anyway, thanks so much for watching this edition of Whiskey at Work. We're trying to track down
Kelsey. We're trying
to find Kelsey. We hope she's warm and safe. But we are going to try to track down
Jesus, really?
The whiskey pickle.
No, or the wicked pickle.
The wicked pickle. That's what it's called. The wicked pickle.
You're making fun of me.
I did. Tried to make money and screwed it up. Anyway, maybe we'll find that for next week. Thanks so much for watching.
That ain't gonna be next week.